According to various ancient texts and stories from all around the world, people in the distant past used to have heightened psychic abilities like telepathy, like levitation, like remote viewing, clairaudience, clairvision, etc. If this was to be true, how could humanity lose all of those abilities? In this episode, we shall talk about the psychic abilities of the distant past of our ancient ancestors and in what possible ways could all of those psychic abilities be not maybe lost completely, but could be degenerated and degraded. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Alexander and in this episode we shall talk about the lost psychic abilities of the distant past. And according to various ancient texts in very distant past, our ancient ancestors used to have very heightened psychic abilities. And for example, in the Hindu epic Mahabharata, there are many mentions not only of people having telekinesis, but also, for example, of people observing things at a distance in their own minds. And there is a case that during the battle, a blind person, Dhritarashtra, who was at the time in his palace because he was blind and he couldn't fight, was seeing the battlefield, how it looked like as a live stream during the actual time, by remote viewing, by his psychic abilities. And as we see, he was blind, but he could in his own mind see what was happening in the battlefield, and he could be a remote strategist and observer. And actually psychic abilities are real, and I've been psychic from my early childhood, and if you want to hear more about just psychic abilities or even my psychic abilities, you can comment down below. And psychic abilities are actually experienced by many of us, and I think that all of us have the psychic abilities, but because of our own belief system, which is mostly based on materialism, that there do not exist nothing more than only matter and physical interactions, so anything like energies, ghosts, etc. do not exist. And because of that belief, I think all of the psychic abilities are either totally cancelled in us or are at a very low level, and we are not able to do such things as Dhritarashtra in the Mahabharata epic. But actually these psychic abilities are real, and there are plenty of evidence, and even there were during the Cold War by the USSR and the USA, there were many experiments of remote viewing, and people who used that remote viewing could see the, for example, military facilities. And one of that person was Ingo Swann, and Ingo Swann could really show his abilities, that he could really see what was in those secret bases in the USSR at that time, and his visions were very accurate. So as we see, even in modern day, there exist those psychic abilities, but as we see in the past, there were more heightened. And actually it is even mentioned in the ancient texts that those psychic abilities were heightened, and according to many Greek philosophers and historians during the very distant past, there were many other races of mankind, and those races or other beings which lived on Earth were very psychic, and they could actually interact with nature. There are mentions that they knew everything. There are mentions by Herodotus, Hesiod, and many other ancient Greek philosophers, historians, that in very distant past, our ancient ancestors could actually know everything at once, and they were very psychic, they were forecasting the future, etc. And even in the ancient Greece, which wasn't that long ago, people were used to seeing the world as the inner world of thoughts, of emotions and other visions as not their own, but just that of the outside world. So for example, according to ancient Greeks, all of our thoughts are not, to some extent, are not our own thoughts, but are just things that are from outside. So for example, some nymphs and other beings are actually sending us those thoughts, or gods or other beings, and all of those thoughts are not ours, and just we are filtering these thoughts and just using them to be in that reality. And there are many other mentions that in the distant past the psychic abilities were heightened. In my previous video I mentioned CDs, which are the yogic superpowers, and in the yogic tradition there are many superpowers, for instance of teleportation, of levitation, of becoming infinitely small or infinitely large like a whole universe. And actually mysticism and mystical experience is based on that the psychic phenomena, and actually the true mystical experience is the connection to the entire universe. So as we see this connection, which nowadays is called mysticism and which is experienced by just a few or just a small group of people in the very distant past, was very common, and people were just mystics and they were just interacting with nature, they knew everything, they experienced the entirety, the wholeness of the universe, and they could do anomalous, in modern words, feats of, for example, levitation, of teleportation, of telekinesis, and many other things. And according to ancient texts and, for example, Greek historians or the Yogic or the Hindu tradition, there are cyclical epochs during the times, and these cyclical epochs actually are concerned with the psychic abilities. And for example, in Yogic and in Hindu traditions, there are yugas, these cycles of yugas. And at different yugas there are different psychic abilities, and according to some researchers, nowadays we live in the Kali Yuga, which is the most material one, and actually, as we see, it is very connected to our modern world, dominated with materialism and the scientific materialism. And in different yugas, after those cycles, there are different epochs, and for example in Golden Age, this Satya Yuga, and other yugas, people have heightened those psychic abilities, and they feel this interconnectedness with all the nature. And the same is mentioned by ancient Greeks, and according to ancient Greeks there is this Bronze Age, this Golden Age, this Silver Age, and during those ages people have many different abilities. In Golden Age people are just like gods, they can manifest themselves, they can materialize things, etc. And as you see, this connected with the yogic tradition. And also similar stories can be found in many other versions, myth traditions. And for example, according to the Theosophists, so researchers who research theosophy, so they merge philosophy, ancient wisdom, science, metaphysics, spirituality. According to them, in the distant past, these different human races were even not material at all, and those humans were just energy based, like in the yogic tradition we've got these chakras, this energy. And according to this, not only ancient mentions but also to Theosophists and their own visions of the past, in the very distant past people were not that material. They were either a little bit material, a little bit dense, but they were less dense than we are nowadays in those material bodies. So not only according to those ancient texts, but also according to several researchers and visions of our distant past by clairvoyance, by some prophets, for example Edgar Cayce and many others, in the very distant past people were not as dense as we are today, and they had very heightened psychic abilities. I am still researching that topic, but I thought that it is very useful and very interesting to hear about it. And if I found many other mentions of those psychic abilities and those before ages, I will create another video. But I think that it would be all for today's video. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to like this video, because on my channel I share with you my other researches, and I'm primarily concerned with the illusion of reality, the physics, quantum physics, and the lost civilizations. And actually my first book about lost civilizations, about different ancient texts and different evidence of those lost civilizations, has been already published in Polish. It is here, just here. It is called Déjà Vu Has Everything Already Been, and now I am translating it into English, and I think in about a month or two it will be published on Amazon. So don't forget to just check out my social media to be informed about this book if you are interested. That will be all for today. Thank you, and until the next video.